All right, we are back with the 107th edition of the Quarantinecast. I'm very excited for this one. I have Landon Quiñones, who's competing on the Contender Series. I think this Tuesday. It's actually on Tuesday this time, not Wednesday. Without further ado, I'm going to bring him in. He's 5-1. He fights out of Sanford MMA as well as ATT. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well as his upcoming fight. So hey man, how you doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
Not too bad. How has the pandemic been treating you?
Pretty terrible at first, but now obviously it's the tables are turning in my favor. So I'm happy I get this opportunity on Contender, and hopefully I get a chance to change my life. It seems
Yeah,
I'm pretty
man.
ready for it there.
Huge news. You're competing on the Contender Series. So how are you feeling just a few days out now? I think 4 days out.
Hungry. That's about it. Aside from that, I'm pretty optimistic. The weight cut is pretty necessary because it's locking me in and making me really not think much about the fight. So I'm just chilling, just getting through it.
Speaking for myself, I put on a few pounds throughout the pandemic. So how's the weight cut been? Any different than usual?
Well, they called me about 20 days ago, and I was supposed to fight on the 22nd of November on the Titan FC card in Dominican Republic. So I was actually really heavy when they called me for the fight. Regardless, I'm a professional and I'll never miss weight, but I'm a little heavier than I'd like to be. I really realistically wish I was about like 8 pounds lighter right now, but I'll get it done nonetheless. It is what it is. It's going okay. I mean, I just have to suffer a little bit earlier than I'd like, but it's cool. It is what it is.
How
Part
did
of the
you
game.
how did you get the news that you were competing on the Contender Series, and how did you take it?
Well, my coach has been managing me for a long time. I recently signed with Iridium Sports Agency, and Jason House communicates with my coach. And I was training at Goat Shed in Miami. I actually don't train at American Top Team, by the way. I only train out of Sanford and Goat Shed. So I was training in Miami in Wynwood, and I was in the middle of practice, and my coach over there got a call from my striking coach who was in contact with Jason House. He actually put the phone on speakerphone, and they actually recorded my reaction. So obviously, like my coach took it because he knows the answer that I'm going to say when they call the big boss calls or the big show calls. You don't say no. So I was distraught, but I mean I was shocked and it was pretty surreal. But it's an exciting experience, and I think I belong in the big show. I think I'm ready for that next level. So let's go. It's go time. I'm ready to go.
Were you
I'm excited.
surprised? Were you surprised to get it so early in your career? I mean, especially at 155 and 145, where the division stacked in the UFC. Were you surprised that you got the call with only 6 fights in?
Absolutely not. I feel like I'm a high level fighter. I mean, I train with some of the best guys in the world over at Sanford MMA. I train with guys who are in that UFC caliber. I've trained with many UFC veterans, Bellator veterans, and I train at the highest level. And I've displayed great composure in my fights on big shows like Titan FC and Bellator as well. So I feel like I'm ready for that big stage. It doesn't make a difference to me what's going on. And plus, it's a new era, man. There's a whole new breed of fighters coming out. Um, uh, Realistically, records are just a number at this point. You know, the guys coming up that have the same records as me are very skilled, very tough individuals, and we're ready to take over, man. Out with the old, in with the new.
What are your thoughts on Shaheen Santana? I mean, very, very dangerous fighter. He's 6-0 as a pro and undefeated as an amateur. What are your thoughts on him?
I think he's tough. I mean, he's athletic. I mean, he's got heart. I question a lot of things. I question his conditioning. I don't really think his wrestling is very strong. I don't think his striking is very strong. I think he's just very long. He doesn't really have a goal of what he's trying to accomplish on the feet. He's just got very good physical attributes. He's got a good front kick, and he's got a slick front choke game. But aside from that, I don't really see him much as a threat. Well, obviously he's a threat. I don't want to say it like that because everyone's a threat. But I feel like I'm a way better fighter everywhere. I feel like I have a strong heart, a strong will. I'm very motivated, and I don't know. I just don't feel like anyone can take this from me. My confidence is through the roof, and I'm ready to just take what's mine. I'm not sleeping on him. I'm not putting him out there. I got dropped in my last fight. I know I respect the fight game greatly. I know anything can happen. But if I show up on fight night and I'm focused and in shape the way I can be, then I don't think there's any 55er in the world that can beat me.
Do you find it harder to prepare for an opponent that doesn't have that loss? I mean, obviously, if there's a loss on someone's record, you can kind of, okay, so he's, the rear naked choke, that's his weakness. But when someone doesn't have a loss, do you find it harder to prepare for?
It really doesn't make a difference to me. As I said, records are just a number. I look at a lot of his fights. One, even though he did squeak out victories in his fights and little slick submissions and transitions, he was losing a lot of the fights that he's won in his record. Um, uh, Also, number two, great fighters find a way to adapt. Great fighters find a way to win. And I'm one of those guys that I believe I'm a great fighter, and I feel like I will find a way to win. And like whatever opportunity is present itself, I will take it, or I'll create opportunity for myself to get a finish or get the win I need. So I'm not really worried about that. I don't need to look at film. I don't need to look at anything like that. I know I've watched him a little bit, but you don't need to think into it like that. At the end of the day, it's a fight. Whether I'm in front of a million people, whether I'm in an alley, like I'm gonna get a full training camp and work all these positions in a street fight when someone's trying to come up to me. No, I'm not. At the end of the day, you got to dumb it down. This is a fight, and it is what it is.
So were you primarily training at Sanford MMA for this one? Is that where you mainly did your camp?
Well, I split my camp in two. I had a lot of personal issues during this fight camp. I trained mainly at Sanford because that's where I do most of my practices in the morning. But I also train at the Goat Academy in Miami under Coach Asim Zahi. He's been helping me a lot with my MMA game, my grappling game, my strategic stuff. So basically what happened was I was training at Sanford basically for the first I want to say between 4 to 6 weeks in my camp because was training 10 weeks already. I was a little heavy, but I was still in good shape. I was just a lot bigger than I needed to be. I was training over there, and then I had a falling out with a roommate. Ended up moving out of his house. Then I was pretty much homeless, so I moved to Miami to stay with my coach over there. Once that happened, while I was living with him, my car engine actually blew out, so I couldn't even make it to Deerfield. I was in Wynwood in Miami, driving 45 minutes north to Deerfield, and with no vehicle, I couldn't make it up there. So I split the second half of my camp at the Goat Shed fully, and it all worked out. I was able to make it happen regardless.
It's really baffling to me how guys are able to kind of overcome these things. Usually, if I'm going to get into a fight, I want everything to be perfect. So how do you balance that? How do you say, you know what, I am going through these hard times, and how do you kind of stay motivated even though these things are happening to you?
Well, I put my whole life into this, man. In life, nothing's perfect. There's always going to be setbacks. There's nothing that's going to go completely smooth. I've had fights where I walk out to the fight too cold. I forget a hoodie. I've had fights where my opponent walks out and I wasn't able to get my fight when I was supposed to turn pro. You know what I mean? I've had financial struggle. I've had family struggle. I've had, I mean? Life is tough and it's never perfect. And tough times don't last. Tough people do. And realistically, it doesn't matter. As long as with my work ethic and how my will to win, I'm going to put in the work regardless, whether I have to put extra hours because the training's lighter, whether I have to go push myself a little harder in practice, whether I have to do extra sessions. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get the work done and I'm going to make it happen because this is what I do. This is what I love to do. This is what I want to do. And this is what I will succeed doing.
Who is your primary training partners going into this one? Am I crazy to think that I saw a picture of you and Mike Perry?
No, you're not. I actually did spar Mike Perry during this training camp a little bit.
How was that?
He's a big dude, man. He's super strong. I did really well with him. He's a tough dude. I like him as a person. He came in a few times. I didn't really get a lot of rounds with him. It wasn't like I was having those like specific cage rounds with him. I just gave him a couple rounds to help him because he was training for Robbie. I really didn't like doing that because I trained at Sanford with Robbie, but Roger Crawl, who's my head striking coach, was training Mike Perry. So what am I going to do? Tell my head coach no? So I gave him a couple of rounds, It is what it is. But he's a big dude, man. I remember the first round, he grappled me and he back arched me. And obviously I don't want to pop my shoulder, so I didn't post my head. I just like laid there and took it. I'm like, all right, cool. So, yeah. My main training partners have pretty much been while I was at Sanford, I was training a lot with Evan Elder, my boy Delano Taylor, Danny Colazzo. While I've been at Gocha, I've been training my boy Yoansi Valdez. He's a Division I All-American, 4-time JUCO national champion wrestler, Cuban dude. I've been training a lot with. Wait, repeat that.
2-time JUCO national champion, 4-time high school American, 2-time NCAA qualifier.
Yeah, four-time high school American, 2-time NCAA qualifier, and 2-time JUCO national champ. Sorry. He's right here with me in the quarantine, so he had to correct me. He's like, yeah. He's a high level wrestler. Who else? I'm trying to think. Yeah, man, that's probably the main people that stand out. Oh, my buddy Angel Alvarez. He's a 10-time judo national champion from Cuba. So I was doing a lot of grappling with him as well. I didn't really get much striking work done in this camp like I'd like to, but I was getting my pads. I got my sparring in. My boy Chris Boasso, I've been training with a lot. I also put a lot of rounds in with Mike Davis. He's a UFC vet as well.
Yeah,
I forgot to mention him. That's a good name that I was working with a lot.
Yeah, Mike Davis is very, very underrated. Very, very good. Very dangerous. He had a good run in the UFC, I thought.
He's still in the UFC. He's just been injured.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I want to. I mean, back in June, you were able to compete for the first time since the pandemic. What was it like competing in the empty arena?
Man, I'm strong mentally, so I don't really feel it makes much of a difference. I can fight whether it's in front of a million people or nobody. It was a little eerie. The one thing I did like is that I was able to really hear my coaches, but I like fighting in front of crowds because you really do feel the difference as far as the energy is concerned. But I liked it. It was cool.
I want to talk about one point in your career that I thought was really the turning point. It was that loss. It was very, very close, razor thin. What was the biggest lesson you learned from that loss?
One, stop cutting so much weight that's going to affect your performance, because that was a big thing. I realized after that fight, I started talking about the move up because I realized after those weight cuts how bad my body blows up. Being a 45er, that was the first fight. After the fight, I actually got up in the 180s after the weight cut because my body was just holding on to everything and retaining water, retaining everything I was eating. So that was a problem that started to happen. Also, another thing, get the fuck off the fence. Learn some wall work, get better, have more of a sense of urgency when people are stalling me out. Obviously, I don't want to look at the ref to save me because I should have been able to get off the fence. I worked a lot of my wrestling after that fight, a lot of my cage wrestling, a lot of my volume. I worked on a lot of things, man, and I feel like I've hit that next level and I've fixed those little kinks.
For sure. Another point was really early on in your career as an amateur. You didn't have, I guess, the most successful amateur career, going 3-3. What was the key? 4-4? Is it? Okay, Tapology says 3-3.
Yeah. Not always accurate.
So what was the key there to turning it around before going pro?
Well, man, honestly, I had no grappling. I really was a stubborn guy. I love striking, and I was one of those guys that, our game plan to be Landon, let's push him to the fence or let's grapple him and just hold him down and you're gonna win. He'll get tired, and they were right. I really was stubborn that I didn't want to work on my weaknesses. I just wanted to be flashy. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and it's realistically about humbling yourself. What really humbles you is when you find yourself on a losing record, when you commit yourself to something full time in your life. I'm sitting here losing fights and doing all this shit when I'm not even good at the one thing I'm supposed to be good at. It really makes you do a lot of self reflection and look at yourself in the mirror and wonder if you really want to do this or not. And I've been through a lot of my life, and I've been through a lot of adversity. I've had a lot of people tell me I can't do things, so I was very motivated to just keep pushing and not give up and not quit, because I've quit everything else I've done in my life, whether it's come to sports, projects, jobs, anything you could think of. I've been a guy that always used to quit. And in the fight game, it's something that I'll never do because I have a heart of a warrior, and I feel like you need to push forward when tough times happen,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you hear it so many times, guys who have losses early on in their career and then they just blow up, and that's kind of what happened to you. And it's almost good that it happened as an amateur rather than as a professional.
That's what amateurs are for. I feel like that's where you get your experience. You're not getting paid. Half the time your fights aren't seen. I count them as real losses for sure. I don't look at myself as a 5-1 fighter. I definitely count my amateur fights as fights because it's still real, man. There's ground and pound to the face. You get injured. I've seen plenty of nasty knockouts in the amateurs. It's still a fight. It's the same feeling, the same pressure. Just in that moment, the pressure is different than what it is now. The way you handle it is a lot different than how you would handle it now. But at the end of the day, it's always the same thing. It's still a fight. So I have had losses. I have had tough times. I've faced adversity. I've been in those highs. I've been in those lows, and I know how to handle them now. So I know how to not put pressure on myself. That's why I feel like I'm a very composed fighter, and that's an attribute I have that a lot of people don't.
So I kind of built this platform on making predictions, and I know a lot of guys don't like doing it, but there's a big title fight coming up, and I couldn't go without asking. Alex Perez competing against Davison Figueroa, who looked unbelievable. Do you have a prediction for that fight?
Man, I like Alex Perez a lot. I think he's got solid boxing. I think he has a solid low kick game. I think he moves very well. Very good striker. I haven't really seen much of his grappling, or I can't really remember. Davison is very good as well at striking, I feel. But I don't really even think essentially that he's good. He's just such an athletic presence that if he touches you, he can seriously hurt you. So, I mean, I don't feel like I've seen enough of Figueroa to predict a knockout or see how he's going to be. I'd like to see him a little more. But if I were to go with anyone, I'd go with my guy, Alex Perez, for sure.
All right, I'll ask you a couple more questions, and I'll let you go back to your quarantine there. So for people who haven't watched you compete, what can they expect from you on November 10th?
They can expect a high-pressure fight, an exciting fight, an explosive fight, and I'm 99% sure a finish within the first 2 rounds.
If you could compare yourself to any fighter in the UFC today, who would it be?
Max Holloway, Nick Diaz, if he's still in the UFC.
All right.
Who else? Nah.
Oh, mix.
Oh, fuse them together. There you go. Something like that.
All right, perfect. And last question: is there any sponsors, anyone you want to thank, or anyone you want to plug?
Yes, thank you to Mushin Store for hooking me up with my fight camp shirts. Pyramid Pools, Mainstream Cultivation. I'm trying to think, man. I got a few. My team at the Goshen Academy, my Sanford MMA crew, Coach Henry Hoove, Coach G Jones, Asim Zaidi, Roger Crawl, Brandon Lewis, Ahmed, my coach Ahmed from Symmetry Fitness, Rapid Symmetry Combat Team, my training partners, and I believe that's it for now.
All right, man. Thank you for the time.
And one more, Creating Better Days CBD. Thank you guys so much for supporting me for this fight camp.
All right, perfect. There you have it, man. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it. You're 4 days out, so can't wait to watch you go out there and compete and hopefully get a contract.
Yes, sir. I'm taking what's mine, baby. Let's go.
All right, man. All the best.
Have a good one, brother. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Landon Quiñones. He's competing on the Contender Series on November 10th. That's in 4 days at the time of recording. It's probably going to be 3 days at the time I post this. So make sure you guys tune in. I've been a fan of his for a little while now. He's a killer, man, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do. And remember, if you haven't yet, donate to Movember to raise awareness for prostate cancer. I have to wear this, so the least you could do is drop a little donation. And if you can't do that, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.